Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check. I'm gonna remove that. That's working. Oh, this is music. That ain't music. That's why. Boom. Bear with. There we go. There we go. Fishing to fit in the building. A team 3307. Hello, hello, hello. Time was happening. Let's transition now. This is like OBS, a mini OBS. I switched to EV Mux, y'all, so y'all bear with me. Hey y'all. Hey Pumpkin, how you doing? Organized. T Berry is in the building. What's good? What's good? Tim Miranda, Mr. Faithful. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. What's popping? What's popping? Y'all know what time it is. We back at it. We back at it. Part 4. The manipulated man. We back on it. BZ in the building. What's good, my boy? What's good, my boy? What's popping? What's popping? Jeff Short. Jeff Short. Appreciate y'all, man. We gonna get through this hour reading. Then I'm gonna share a video with y'all. And if y'all want, we can talk about it for a little bit, right? Um, Finished out the day. Had to move a freezer. Our freezer went out, so my wife she bought some meats. So I finally had to get the freezer set up. Finally had to get the freezer set up. So it's been sitting in a box for a week. Y'all know how that goes sometimes. Um, Went to the gym, got that out the way, and we back. Let's get it popping. I hope y'all had a great day. Tomorrow's Friday. It's almost over. 18, why you don't have a wrench? Is that a fake 18? Is it two 18s in here? Because my 18 got a wrench. 18, is that a different page? Let me know. This one right here don't got no wrench. Anyway, let's get to it, man. We got an hour worth of reading. We are on, where we at? We are on page 86. Is the mic okay, guys? Is the mic okay? How we sounded? We ain't got a lot more of this book, but I'm gonna stretch it. How we sounding? We sounding okay? Mic check, mic check. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate y'all. We are on page 86, the chapter called Manipulation Through Bluff. This playlist is in chronological order. So of course you guys can go through and listen to the previous chapters if you haven't, right? Yeah, that's a fake 18. I don't know. She gonna have to tell me. She's still in here. She's still in here. 18, is this somebody biting your stilo? Let me know. AB, what's good? Okay, I got you. I got you, sis. I got you. I got you. Okay. Okay, I got y'all. Let's get to going, man. Manipulation through bluff, guys. Manipulation through bluff. Man's strong sexual drive, his brilliant mind, and his need for a system that will help him bear those responsibilities recognized by his intelligence have enabled women to make effective use of certain institutions that properly belong to the past. Thomas, what's happening? institutions like the church, that many nonconformist sects, 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 and other religious communities, she cold-bloodedly uses them to help with the manipulation of her children, guys. She exploits their armies of clergymen and other functionaries as a kind of military police force designed to protect women's interests even after her children are grown up. Hence, it is advantage to women, as we have already noted, to be neither religious nor superstitious. Unless a boy's manipulation has been exceptionally successful, as in the case of those who decide to become priests, men are equally unlikely to believe in the dogma of their church. But if its teachings are inculcated at a very early age, they do help to provide certain archetypes and a useful basis for the standards of good and evil. These are standards which have no rational roots, but are part of men's subconscious and are therefore ineradicable. Essentially, these standards are always the standards of women. Thomas Hill, what's good, bro? I see you. Any religious system must be based on manipulation, since it consists of a series of rules and taboos with a catalog of penalties for trespass against those rules. These trespasses are called sins. The penalty for them are never imposed in reality, for faith in some kind of superconsciousness is a system without real foundation. No one could know about secret sins or exact punishment for them. As a result, people are apt to say that an unavoidable misfortune, such as a loss of a friend or an earthquake, is a punishment. In earlier times, when men's understanding of such disasters as plagues, crop failures, and lightning were limited, men believed they were punishment for sins committed at some previous time. And so they thought to avoid them in the future by unconditional surrender to rules or by repentance. A kind of brainwashing. Such myths become obvious as man's mind develops. He can prove fallacy by committing a sin without incurring any subsequent signs of wrath. But the deepest seated fear of punishment, the feeling of having sinned, carefully cultivated during a child's earliest years, will prevent him, as an adult, from doing something that was considered quote unquote bad when he was a child. And if by chance he does do something which as a child he called a sin, he will have at the very least a bad conscience. One sin which figures in almost all of these catalogs is pleasure in the sexual act when reproduction is not intended, guys. And since men who are provoked by women always take pleasure in sex, they yield to this pleasure as often as possible and never once give a thought to reproduction. During orgasm, man experiences a certain kind of pleasure far from the joy of having just engendered a child. Thus, in this moment, man is even more than ordinarily deluded. They constantly transgress against the rules of their childhood beliefs and thus always carry with them a feeling of sin. Women, on the other hand, have learned to control their sexual urge and to make love for the most part not for their own satisfaction, but for some specific purpose: breadwinning, reproduction, the gratification of a man, in the latter case, an act of charity. Commit no sins thereby. Even if they considered sex sinful, they are immune to remorse. Unlike men who are constantly forming new resolutions which they never stick to, women do not have such a debit or guilt account in any system made for their use. Excuse me. Even if they are believed in such a system, she be using cut off sentences. I don't know if it's because of the translation or whatever, but the sentences be broken up to me. Even if they believe in such a system, with their tendency to self-abasement, their suppressed and stunted sexual needs, their assumption that they will survive without working by letting others work for them, they resemble those figures, Jesus Christ, Gandhi, who allowed themselves to be considered ideals by men, ideals which men, because of their slavery to their instincts, can never attain, and which confirm their suspicions that all qualities truly worthy of worship are in the last analyst feminine. Yet in reality, neither woman nor their chosen police force, the clergy, are really interested in a man's sexual drive. The taboo did not have to apply to this particular instinct. They merely chose it because it is man's greatest and purest pleasure, right? So what I mean when we be talking about that, to try to step back into, what we cover over here from time to time, right? This is when I have the discussion for you guys when I tell y'all, like, it's the ultimate reward system for men, right? For a man to deny that, right, is a lie, right? And for a man to be able to deny that at some point in his life, it was either something monumental that changed his perspective of it, right? Or he's had so much of it that it becomes mundane. Hey, Lady Navor, how you doing, sis? Does that make sense, guys? Right? So every man on this planet and women try to insist that it's minute, right? That it's not a major thing. I digress and I argue the point that it is major for most men, for most. And again, we deal in the majority. That's the rule, right? Where was I at? Okay. And purest pleasure. Had he derived as much satisfaction from smoking or eating pork, woman would have equated smoking or eating pork with sin. The point is to keep him in a state of sin, ergo fear, thus open to manipulation, right? Whenever you and this point, that point she just made as far as fear, making it easy for people to manipulate, right? That make people easy to manipulate. That applies in all aspects of life, right? That's especially apparent in the world we live in today when we speak on the political sphere, right? People just scared because they don't know what's going to happen, right? They're fearful, so they're easily uh it's easy to be able to control the message and fill them with a certain thought processes, right? This is one of the reasons why the catalog of sins varies according to a man's age. For a small child, the taboo is lying, coveting the property of others, and not honoring one's father and mother. For an adult, it is sexual desire and lusting after one's neighbor's wife. Yet, how can they recognize these sins when they know neither the rules nor the system in whose name they were established? How can they believe in something that does not exist or feel ashamed of a pleasure that does not hurt anyone? Anything that deals with religious beliefs is contrary to the rules of reason and consequently has to be instilled at an age when a sense of logic is as yet undeveloped. If possible, this should take place in a building whose absurd design and architecture equal the absurdity of that which is preached in it, thus making it all a little less incredible. And to purveyors of this type of illogical thinking should, if possible, look different from other people. If children are taught by men who dress like women, for example, or who adopt some other form of masquerade, their pupils' bewilderment and awe will be all the greater, and their respect for these figures will never entirely leave them. Right? Y'all do with that what y'all will if y'all picking up what I'm putting down. Right? Women have taken great care Just I was popping. Women have taken great care to ensure that their lobby, the clergy, are always men. First, because the female image might be damaged if they represented their own interests. Men might think them calculating. And second, because they know men rate feminine intelligence rather low, which is why they can only influence a man's emotions. Wait a minute. First, because the female image might be damaged if they represented their own interests. Men might think them calculating. And second, comma, because they know men rate feminine intelligence rather low, which is why they can only influence a man's emotions. Advice from another man, and one respected from childhood, is much more likely to be listened to and taken. Although this advice always benefits women, for example, they will advise a man to stay with a woman he doesn't love or support children he never wanted, it does not reflect hostility on the part of this lobby towards normal men, quote unquote, but is a direct consequence of that lobby's financial dependence on women. So this is just reiterating what we talked about, how the church, the government and things of that nature, right? And the fashion overs, the fashion need, whatever, right? The culture, why they cater to women and such, because financially it's so great financially, right? Women could survive easily without the church. They only need it for the training of men and children, or as a setting for the display, of specialized wardrobes. But the church would be ruined without the support of women. Children can be trained and today are very often raised without the church's help. It is entirely possible that women one day might give up the nave of a church as the most efficient background for a white dress. They might even consider a registrar sufficient to subdue a nervous bridegroom. What's going on? Chill out. Okay. Such trends would empty the churches in a couple of years. In the Soviet Union, marriage palaces have taken their place as a wedding background. If this became the fashion, people would see churches for what they really are, relics of a long dead age. They would withdraw their financial support, both public and private, which in the last analysis has always been provided by who? The men. It is a man who pays his own tormentors. So when we hear someone say what magical power the church has, since it still draws people to it after many hundreds of years, the circumstance has obviously been misunderstood. It is not the church which possesses a magical power. It is women. All such institutions have long since become mere tools in the hands of women, and it is unlikely that they will ever do anything other than fulfill women's expectations. Ultimately, the victims are not the representatives of the various religious communities themselves. They want only to live a peaceful, undisturbed life at the expense of masculine men, of course, just like women, and have become a kind of mafia used by women to terrify children. This is yeah. This is what we talking about. Well, this is what we talk about, especially ladies, when we say the only reason women get away with stuff is because other men allow it, right? For us to get to where we need to get, we would have to destroy the enablers. Guardian Dog, what's good, bro? Right? And have become a kind of mafia used by women to terrify children, enslave men, and put a brake on progress. These men are forced under the threat of boycott, and y'all know what boycott means, right? No punani, right? To appear in ludicrously effeminate clothes, to intone grotesque sounds loudly, and to tell horror stories to a sometimes even intelligent audience. All this despite the fact that these stories, by which they make such abject fools of themselves, have long been discarded by modern theology and stand in obvious contrast to all they have been taught as students at the universities. Everything's everything, bro. Modern theology, of course, is useless for conditioning purposes now that it has renounced the carrot and stick principle. Women need those moth-eaten tales of heaven and hell, of devils and angels, of paradise and judgment day. Death is only a useful means of manipulation if it is a door leading either to eternal happiness or to eternal damnation. To which of these two realms this door may lead is dependent on a kind of point system, scored accordingly to earthly achievement and calculated by women. If life everlasting can be won only by faithfulness and slavery, it falls in with the interests of women. Interests which would in no way be furthered if men decided to investigate eternal life in biological terms, an investigation for which we might have to wait a couple of generations. Women themselves are, of course, quite unmoved by all these myths. They go to church only if and when they want. Their conscience does not bother them either way. For the big ceremonies, which are really attempts at intimidation on the part of women, not on that of the clergymen, they array themselves in suitable attire, wedding dresses, christening clothes, mourning clothes, confirmation dresses, their men in their usual dark suits. They enact the roles of believer, superstitious person, or skeptic, but in reality, their minds are elsewhere. They are not interested in male speculations on the possibility of walking on water, turning water into wine by magic, or achieving also with the help of magic an immaculate conception. As usual, their interest does not concern itself with the essence of the thing of such, but with its possibilities of exploitation. If a man of another faith wants to marry a woman and demands her conversion in exchange for his own promise to work for her, no woman would hesitate for a moment. A Muslim woman would tell Christian in a heartbeat. Angry man, what's good, bro? How you doing, man? Page 92. The chapter is commercialized prayers. For most men, all that remains of the religious faith of childhood, are a few conditioned behavioral reflexes, such as the love of truth, the enjoyment of honest hard work, or a pleasure in non-freedom. From the moral point of view, everyone should have the right to lie. It helps us to stave off society's often too bold attempt to supervise us and thus minimize our own personal fight for existence. The disadvantage of lying is that if everyone does it, it loses its usefulness. If anyone is gullible enough to believe something that is not true, he must himself love the truth and assume a similar love in others. Consequently, a lie becomes a luxury. It has rarity value. The rarity value has to be maintained by incessant denigration. And in the interest of liars, what? The rarity value has to be maintained by incessant denigration in the interest of liars. Therefore, it is very important that women teach men love of truth, for only if he loves truth is she able to afford the luxury of lying. For a contemporary society to survive at all, men must believe in truth. They do the work, and no practical, i.e., logical system can function on lies. In the highly developed system of contemporary society, where all labor is divided, each man must be able to work with and rely on the other. If men were to take to lying when the moment seemed opportune, say in matters such as train schedules, freighters' capacities, or the amount of fuel left in an airplane's tank, the effect on our commercial system would be disastrous. Within a very short time, there would be complete chaos. Women, however, can lie with a clear conscience. They are not involved in the process of work, so their lies will harm only one person, usually the husband. And if it's not discovered, it is not a lie at all. It is feminine guile. The only crime that does not come under this heading is physical unfaithfulness, which a man will not forgive. As a man has been conditioned by women's self abasement, it seems natural to him that she should use her guile, weak, independent creature that she is, as the only way in which she can hope to guide this powerful, sex obsessed giant, this unfortunate, wretched animal. It is no wonder that women, having proved guile a success, talk quite openly about it. You will read about it in one of their favorite medias, women's magazines. Mothers hand it out as advice to their daughters. I mean, why not? It is quite justified since all their comforts depend on it, for they are frequently forced to exploit the same man. First, the mother's husband, and later, perhaps, if the mother lives under the same roof, the daughter's husband. After all, their whole future comfort depends on whether he comes to heel. Heel, guys. Of course, women would never openly. Sorry, guys. Of course, women would never openly forbid a man to lie. They simply associate lying with repugnance. This is easily done by means of the chosen system of religious faith, which connects lying with the idea of fictional punishment, or by a kind of personal magic, so to speak. If a mother tells her child not to lie to her because it is bad, he will automatically have a guilty conscience if he does. She does not even need to be specific about this badness. Your child believes her implicitly, is dependent on her, and relies upon what she tells him. He believes she would never lie. This is nonsense, right? So this kind of ties into the mother-son or the mother-children discussion we have, right? When you're a kid, you don't recognize what type of parent your mother was or your father was, right? Or I'm gonna say mother because that's what they're talking about. That's what she's talking about, right? Until you get older, really, right? Until you start to see the world yourself. Jay Wills, what's good, my boy? Right? When you start to see the world for yourself and you get you change your programming, right? You change your programming. You become undoctrinated to the teachings that she gave you, right? This is nonsense, of course. For, next page. For mothers constantly tell their children the most barefaced lies. The same magic is involved when, later on, a woman convinces her husband that unfaithfulness is something squalid and wretched. You must never deceive me. Or if she happens to be one of those tolerant wives, it's not so bad if you deceive me, but you must never, under any circumstances, leave me. A generous woman, and he will obey her order, for such it is, without doubting its justification. Once in a while, he will sleep with another woman, but he will rarely leave his wife, although her admission of boundless indifference should be a signal to him to leave her at once. Only one circumstance in a man's life will ever make him tell a lie, and that is when he, as a result of pent up desire, has slept with another woman, although he dearly loves his own wife. He is so afraid of the possible consequence she might do the same thing herself that he will suffer the most agonizing pains of conscience rather than admit the truth. But if he has merely smashed up the car and maybe even killed someone in the process, if he has behaved treacherously towards someone else or taken a day off from work, he would rather clear his conscience and tell her. A woman's reactions are exactly the opposite. She will keep quiet about absolutely everything except her interest in another man or the man's interest in her. If two or three other men are she will use the situation to her advantage by advertising it all at once. My DMs stay full. She tells her husband just to make sure he knows there is someone else to look after her if necessary. This alone is enough to make a man get a move on and increase his rate of output immediately. We have already mentioned man's desire to be unfree. This leads to religious fervor and prayer, a fact which is still true today, for pop songs are only a modified version of childhood prayers. The god of former days has been conveniently replaced by the goddess, the woman, who is right at hand. Man's happiness really does depend on woman. Even the content of the prayers remain virtually the same. The longing to submit oneself to a higher power, a plea for her to listen to him and be merciful, or simple idealization. It doesn't matter whether one says, "So take my hands," or "And thy right hand shall hold me," or "Fly me to the moon." It all amounts to the same in the end. Some modern records do still praise the old God, but only the choice of words show that they are not directly referring to women. Thou who makest all things grow. Prayers and religious songs, i.e., prayers to music, ease existential anxiety. They appeal to a superego on whose every whim happiness depends. This superego allows us to relax and accept life and frees us from the pursuit of happiness, for everything lies in the hands of our God. As man grows older, his fear increases. He has to come to realize why it is justified, and increasingly, his wish to let go grows too. This needs to relax for a few moments at least and to commit himself to the almighty power. In the old days, intellectual men used to work out their fears by writing love poems, which took the place of prayer and calmed them down. Nowadays, this form of adoration has become superfluous. The current supply of pop songs, the dark longings of men naturally commercialized at their own expense, increases, and their lyrics. For example, those of the Beatles satisfy the most sophisticated of tastes. There are, of course, also some hit songs specifically, in praise of men. Those few are usually songs first made popular by a male singer and then sung by a woman. In general, however, women only sing hymns to love, which, since men need them for love, is almost the same as singing hymns to themselves. Still, at some stage, they discovered that they could sing their own praises without being too obvious. And ever since, women have ceased to worry. They praise their own magnificence, their fickleness, their cruelty, and their self-complacency, with which they give themselves to men, whether to save or destroy them. When Marlene Dietrich sang in The Blue Angel that love is my world and my nature and nothing else, all I can do is make love, that's all. And men flutter around me like moths and burn up, and I can't help it. She was expressing just these sentiments. If women can think of themselves as divine, just how divine must they be? In real life, of course, women are far more subtle in their exploitation of the male sex than in that film. They don't ruin men immediately. They are quite prepared to take a whole lifetime over it. After all, who's going to kill the goose that lays so many golden eggs? This is why men were able to laugh over the wretched figure of Professor Unrath instead of recognizing in him a portrait of themselves. Think of Nancy Sinatra's great hit, "These Boots Are Made for Walking," which says the same in a slightly different way. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. A hit indeed, for it satisfies man's need and longing for a cruel goddess on the one hand, and a woman claims to omnipotence on the other. We're on page 97, new chapter, self-conditioning. The ideal of any trainer would be to bring an animal to a level where it is capable of training itself. This is something which still has to be achieved. But man is not an animal, and there comes a point where he does continue his own training because he is much more intelligent than his female trainer. This will work only as long as he never forgets the purpose of his education and keep both reward and punishment in mind at all times. The world of pop songs is one example of man's effort at self-manipulation. The best example of self-conditioning, however, is to be found in the advertising industry. In advertising, man does not idealize women from any masochist tendency. It is purely a question of survival. Only his exploiters, women, have sufficient time and money to buy and consume all his products. To supply the woman inhabiting his ranch house with purchasing power, he has no choice but to cultivate legions of other women who have as much satisfaction as his own wife in spending. They will then buy his goods and keep his wife in pocket money. This is the beginning of a vicious circle, a vicious circle which turns faster and faster until he cannot keep up with it anymore, and someone else has to take over. There is no getting off and running away. You know what? I'm going to stop it right there. We're going to come back to that page on self-condition because I want to run this video. I know my people are about to start their show. I definitely want to be over there. Right? That's what you're reading, guys. The manipulated man. And a lot of y'all that was in here earlier are here. So let me see if I can find this video for y'all real quick. And run this by y'all so y'all can see why they already going. They're already going. They already going. So, hey, what I'm gonna do, y'all, let's go ahead and end this stream. Let's end this stream. Let's head over to the tribe. Let's head over to Promote Conscious Parenting with the SEDS. They got their verses going on right now. I will do a live. What's tomorrow? Friday. Tomorrow's Friday, so I'll do jam sessions tomorrow, guys, and we'll go over that video on jam sessions if you're interested, right? If you're interested. If not, I'll see y'all. You know, on the rebound, right? But tomorrow, Friday, we gonna go over some Luther, because I was supposed to did it last week, but I didn't. So we gonna go over some Luther tomorrow night and cover this video. A little bit of education, and we can talk about it, you know, discreetly. But that's all I got, y'all. Y'all be easy. Look quick, 38 minutes, no problem, no problem. Y'all have a great night. Be safe. Love y'all. Peace.